Snow presses against sod walls.
A knife-sharp wind sweeps across the Norwegian highlands, the air hovering near 30 degrees below zero.
Outside, exposure means death. Inside the longhouse, a family sleeps. They lie on raised wooden platforms, wrapped in wool and animal skins. The fire at the center of the hall has burned down to glowing coals. There are no roaring flames, no sparks, and yet the interior remains warm. This was not chance. It was design.
Between roughly 800 and 1100 CE, Scandinavian settlers constructed long rectangular halls across Norway and Denmark. These buildings varied greatly in length, anywhere from 15 to over 70 meters, depending on wealth and status.
One of the largest ever excavated at Hune in Denmark stretched more than 40 meters.
But while length changed, width did not.
Across regions and generations, longhouses almost always fell between 5 and 7 meters wide. This consistency was not cultural tradition. It was physics.
A narrow building loses less heat relative to the volume of air inside.
It also allows warmth from a single central fire to reach every wall without dissipating. Status could be expressed by extending the hall. Survival, however, depended on controlling its width.
Viking builders never studied thermodynamics, yet they standardized the one measurement that mattered most. The longhouse was not merely shelter, it was a heat management system. The first battle was fought at the walls.
In a land where freezing temperatures could persist for months, stopping heat loss was essential.
Builders adapted to local resources.
In forested regions of Norway and Denmark, walls were made from timber planks or logs anchored on stone bases. Many posts were deliberately scorched before installation. This controlled charring hardened the surface and slowed rot, critical in damp northern climates where moisture destroyed untreated wood.
Iceland presented a different problem. Large trees were scarce, and birch was thin and brittle. Builders responded by turning the landscape itself into architecture.
Thick turf blocks, cut from grass and soil, were stacked into massive walls and layered over roofs.
Beneath the earth sat stone foundations and light timber frames, but the turf did the real work. These walls were not thin. They were heavy, dense, and alive with trapped air. Turf resists heat flow, but more importantly, its sheer mass creates thermal inertia.
Once warm, it cools very slowly. Even as temperatures outside plunged, the interior changed only gradually. The roof completed the shell. In timber-rich areas, wood shingles were used. In Iceland, sod covered everything, forming a low, mound-like structure that blended into the terrain.
From a distance, only a doorway and a smoke opening revealed that people lived inside. This earthen envelope slowed heat loss, but it did not create heat. That role belonged to the hearth. The floor of the longhouse was packed earth, sometimes mixed with ash to control moisture. Down the center ran an elongated stone fire pit. This was the physical and symbolic heart of the home. Flat stones lined the pit. Throughout the day, fires burned for cooking, light, and warmth.
Flames heated the stones slowly, but deeply.
Stone absorbs heat reluctantly, but once saturated, it releases that energy over long periods.
By evening, the stones beneath the fire had become thermal reservoirs. When the flames were allowed to die down or were smothered with ash, the stones continued radiating warmth through the night.
The fire did not need to burn constantly. The heat had already been stored. Excavations support this.
Hearthstones recovered from Viking sites are often smoothed and worn, subtly sunken from centuries of heating and cooling cycles. Night after night, year after year, they absorbed energy and gave it back. This system separated heat production from heat delivery.
Fuel was burned when people were awake. Stored heat carried the household through the coldest hours.
In places where firewood was limited, this efficiency meant survival. But heat alone was not enough.
Air had to be controlled. Viking longhouses had no chimneys. Smoke exited through a roof opening, the Ljori.
Aside from small gaps near the roofline, this was the only planned vent. As the fire burned, hot gases rose naturally. Smoke accumulated in a thick layer beneath the ceiling. It was unpleasant, eye-stinging, and unavoidable, but it served a purpose. That smoke layer trapped warmth below it. Heat rises, but smoke slows its escape. The upper zone became a thermal buffer, while the lower living space remained comparatively warm and breathable.
The opening in the roof released just enough smoke to prevent suffocation, but not enough to drain heat rapidly.
This was passive airflow control. Cold air still had to enter to replace what escaped.
If it entered through wall cracks, it would create drafts across sleeping areas. Some archaeological evidence suggests a solution: air inlets beneath the hearth itself.
Incoming cold air would be pulled directly into the fire, heated instantly, and fed into the rising convection loop, without chilling the occupants.
No fans, no ducts, just gravity, buoyancy, and placement. The longhouse also borrowed heat from biology. During winter, animals were often kept indoors. A section of the hall housed cattle, sheep, and goats. These animals maintained body temperatures near 40 degrees Celsius.
In a confined space, that metabolic heat mattered. Animals are continuous heat sources. They require no fuel, only feed.
When the fire dimmed and stones released their last warmth, the body heat of livestock helped prevent the interior from freezing. This was not convenience. It was thermal accounting. Sleeping arrangements reinforced the system. Wooden platforms ran along the walls, raised above the floor. Families slept on straw and hides, lifted away from the coldest air. Cold sinks. Warm air collects higher.
These benches placed sleepers directly in the warmest zone, above the floor, below the smoke. The longhouse was not evenly heated. It was deliberately stratified. Some sites reveal even more adaptation.
At Reykholt in Iceland, associated with Snorri Sturluson, stone channels beneath the floor may have carried geothermal heat from nearby hot springs. If correct, this represents an early form of radiant floor heating, smokeless, constant, and fueled by the earth itself. This was rare, but telling. When conditions allowed, Viking builders exploited them. The system worked, but it had consequences. Modern experiments in reconstructed longhouses show extreme indoor pollution. Carbon monoxide and fine particulates reached levels far beyond modern safety standards.
The same features that trapped heat also trapped smoke. But the alternative was worse. In sub-zero darkness, warmth mattered more than clean air. Survival demanded trade-offs. Smoke irritated lungs slowly. Cold killed quickly. The hearth was more than technology. It was culture. Food was cooked there. Tools were worked there.
Stories were told there. In larger halls, multiple hearths existed, one practical, one ceremonial.
Fire marked the boundary between human order and hostile wilderness. Warmth, light, and community existed inside.
Cold and chaos waited outside. The longhouse eventually disappeared.
Modern Scandinavians live with insulation, central heating, and mechanical ventilation. Turf halls remain only as ruins.
But the principles endure. Thermal mass, earth insulation, radiant heat, passive airflow. The Vikings did not defeat winter. They accommodated it. They built with it in mind.
They accepted smoke, directed cold air, and placed themselves where warmth naturally gathered.
The longhouse was not comfortable by modern standards. It was sufficient.
And in a world where failure meant death, sufficiency was everything. The fire has long gone cold. The walls have collapsed. But the knowledge still stands. The longhouse worked, and that is the proof.